Welcome to the True Demon Lord show. I am the True Demon Lord, Franco McDonald, and today I'm going to be recapping the Octa Super Major, which took place over this past weekend. A turnout of 253 players, so quite a big event. And I attended it obviously with Chaos Daemons, and managed to go 4-1 overall, so pretty chuffed, finishing 43rd out of 253. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. The list I ran, something I've been running for a while now, probably over the last month and a bit. We have Be'lakor, Get a Clean One with the Endless Gift, Lord of Change with the Everstave, Shilaxi, 3 units of 3 Nurglings, 2 units of 10 Pink Horrors, unit of 10 Plague Bearers, and 2 units of 5 Flesh Hounds. So I feel like this list has quite nice. Um, it's quite nice and rounded. Be'lakor, though lacking still in offensive and defensiveness, still gives you just way too much. Reefing Shades for the no shoot bubble is just still too good. Just allows you to keep safe in certain matchups like Guard, Tau, Marine matchups, Votan, etc. etc. The Shadow Bubble as well, allowing you to get in closer and get easier charges, as well as just being able to fit in more space on the battlefield when you drop down. The Great Unclean One is just fantastic. Just gives you a lot of toughness and a lot of durability for the points you pay, being able to just take apart the board and kind of just sit there on the objective and knowing that your opponent's going to have trouble to shoot you off during the game. The Lord of Change as well, fantastic, gives you good range to deal with things that are sitting on objectives rather than to go over there to deal with them, as well as having good shooting to clear key units, hit enemy units to either soften them up or even to finish them off depending on what you need. We are still rocking Shilaxi because she's just too good. I will die on the hill that she's just very good still. 450 points, a lot to pay, but she's very good for just picking on a target and killing it. Really just causing havoc in your opponent's lines, as well as playing the mental game at your opponent. Wherever she is, if your opponent knows what she does, they fear her quite a bit, and rightfully so. So she's very good at trying to mess about with your opponent's game plan as well. Your Nurglings do all your secondaries, of course, good screening, good way to zone out scouts as well. 2 units of horrors give me really good primary denial as well as primary play. Your opponent has to really invest a lot to get rid of them, and if they don't, they can keep denying primary during the game, which they did several times during this event. The Plague Bearer is good for the backfield, being able to sticky it is quite nice, as well as being able to mid game and late game come forward, sit on an objective, steal objectives, and again, more sticky objectives, always good. And the 2 units of 5 Flesh Hounds, cheap, you can go through walls, move block, um, and quite fast as well, so you don't really mind them going forward, doing your early stuff, and you're not investing too much to lose it too early, with only just 70 points per 5. Pretty good, pretty handy to have. So, round one, we went into Timo Flynn and his Leagues of Votan list. So a very interesting list. He was running 3 Iron Here champions with the Grim Demeanor and Appraising Glare on 2 of them. 10 Hearthkin Warriors, 4 Sagittars, 3 units of Berserks, which was quite interesting. Unit 10 Hearthguard and 2 units of 5 Hearthguard, which the Hearthguard are fantastic. So, I mean, I think it's more of a surprise we're not seeing 30 of them, but still 110 and 2 5s is a bit scary. And then 3 units of 3 Pioneers, which are the Bikers, which again are pretty good. So, very interesting list. All 3 of the champions went into the Hearthguard squads. The 10 Hearthkin Warriors were split. 5 started on the backfoot objective, 5 went into a Sagittaire. All the Berserkers went into the other 3 Sagittaires, and then the characters attached to the Hearthguard all went into the Extract Reserves. So we played Dawn of War for the first mission, which is my least favorite deployments, and I absolutely hate it. Just the way you set up, especially on UKTC, I'm just not a fan of it. I feel like I'm too exposed. And against Votan, I feel like, again, as you can see here on the left hand side, just the firing lanes down those middle, it's not great. Hence where Be'lakor comes in handy. I went with tactical objectives, something I've been doing a lot with this list. I was running a lot of fix, switch to tactical while running this list. And as you will see going through this video, probably something I'm going to maybe come away from and go back to fixed again because I wasn't too happy with the scoring overall during the weekend. But this game not too bad. Could have been a lot worse. And my opponent actually went with fixed, going with bring it down because I've got the 4 big guys, which was quite nice because then I knew, okay, I could play around with that and really try and dampen his scoring. And then also, excuse me, also deploy teleport home is very hard to stop. All I could actually do with that was try and restrict the amount of force he could get and just keep him down to freeze. But unless you table your opponent early on, deploy is always going to be something hard to stop, especially against an army that's either got speed or the ability to get around the board. Third of Votam, not the fastest. The bikes let him come off and come back on later on in the game, which means I either always have to deploy, always have to screen, sorry, or always have to make sure either the bikes are tagged or dead. Um, so the game, it was quite a close game as the score shows. I knew that I could keep the primary, play a bit more passive with the primary as long as I kept denying him. And then I could then just score my cards knowing that I could manipulate the way he scored his secondaries. So I stopped him getting deploy for 4 in the first 3 turns. Um, he kept a unit of berserks to do that for the first couple of turns in the middle, which was quite nice. It meant I didn't have to deal with it until later on. Um, and then he did manage to get bigger deployed in the last couple of turns because he had a unit of bikes that came off the edge of the board and came back on turn 4, turn 5. I didn't have the spread of units left to deal with it, so I let him have it. But like I said, he dropped 3 points in that, which I was fine with, knowing that I could also then stop him and bring it down. So he did end up killing Shalaxi in turn 3, but at that point she'd already picked up uh, 2 of the Sagittars in combat, 1 in shooting, as well as killing off a unit of Terminators and a unit of Berserk, sorry, um, and holding the middle and forcing him to have to use his 10 block, which he dropped down to get rid of horrors, to then have to move over, leaving another side of my flank okay and on its own to deal with her. So she did her job, to be honest. I didn't mind losing her. The fat boy denied the left hand objective for 3 turns, stopping him from really scoring that while getting me that towards the end of the game. With horrors, I used the horrors on that side to come down 3-inch deep strike to get me tempting target. And on the other side again, just kept denying his primary with play bearers, the horrors, the flesh rounds. The chicken was able to shoot the bikes and the berserkers when they came out onto objectives, or when they came out to either try and counter my Nurglings, or in one case he came up to charge the Nurglings, ended up killing the Nurglings and shooting, leaving a unit of berserks out early on. Meant I could just pick them up quite easy. That was quite nice overall. Scoring wise during the game, we were okay. Like the cards weren't terrible, but they could have been a lot better. Realizing it, looking at this scoring, this score is actually wrong. Because I did get defend stronghold, but I didn't actually score it for myself. Didn't actually cost the game, which is fine. So I only dropped 3 points. Might have made a difference to the overall score or my overall placing, but like nothing, no big deal there. It didn't cost the game or nothing. So overall, I knew that I could play it a bit passive, which I did. The Lord of Change sat back most of the game, or pretty much all game in my deployment zone, just kind of moving left to right to clear um, the right, like keep the objective on the right hand side cleared, as well as moving over and supporting, giving some range fire support to the left flank. The Great King one sat on the left flank all game, keeping the objective safe. The horrors jumped between the left and right side. Jalaxi came up to the centre and just cleared around that area, and Be'lakor kind of danced around as well, throwing out shooting, getting involved in combat when needed. And then the Plague Bearers, again, they came forward to grab me some more primary denial and scoring me at the end of the game as well, because we managed to grab 10 points on the primary in the last turn, as well as 10 points at the end of the game, as did Tim. We did have a moment during the game where Tim kind of misunderstood how sticky objectives had worked. So obviously, sticky objectives, especially his ability, allow you to hold uh, sticky an objective at the start of your command phase when you hold it. And the way that changed in the last data slate, as before it used to be if your opponent held it at the start or end of any turn, the sticky effect went away. Where now that's at the start or at the end of any phase or start of any phase, rather than turn now. Well, he believed that also applied to holding it and making it sticky. And so we had to wait a little bit of time for the judge, which threw me off during one of my turns, which meant we cut right down to the wire on time. But overall, we got the game finished, which was fine. Tim was a cool guy. It was quite cool to know that his mate who played Demons had told him about me, knowing and keeping up with the channel or with the blogs and stuff like that, and Facebooks was quite cool. So I kind of went in a bit like, oh, I don't know what I'm going into, and then my opponent was like, oh, I know who you are. I'm like, oh, okay. So that was a bit strange, but yeah, overall, great first game, nice and close. Would like to have scored better, but I did the job I needed to do, knowing um, that this list was going to be a little bit of a problem if I let the Terminators do what they want, and they did a bit, but I managed to keep them down as much as I could. So going into round two, we got to play Alex Larkin and his Astr Militarum. So I kind of knew Alex because I hung around and know a few of his friends. So that was quite cool to play someone else who I'd seen around. A bit of a different guard list. So when he rocked up with it, I was like, oh, what are we going to be playing here? How much indirect? And found out no indirect. And he had a big tank, which was awesome. So we had a Cadian command squad with the Death Mask, Solo Leontis. Yeah, he's pretty much in every guard list. An Engine Seer, a tank commander with the Vanquisher Cannon, 10 Cadian shock troops, a Bane Sword, which is the big tank, which is cool, which I found out that when it shoots at something and kills it with the big cannon, the Quake cannon, I think it is. If that unit has a deadly demise ability, it procs on a 3+ instead of a 6+. So basically just something that just makes it blow up even harder, which is awesome. It didn't actually come into effect in this game. The one thing it did kill, it didn't blow up. I still rolled a 1, so I was like, oh, okay, fine. We had a Lima Rust Demolisher, a Lima Rust Vanquisher, 2 Roggle Dawns, which I looked at and was like, they're going to be an issue because I don't like them. They're really good. And 2 individual Scout Sentinels. So a pretty interesting list. I did have to toy with the idea of, do I go with Bring It Down? And decided to not go with Bring It Down as fixed, and decided to stick with cards because, again, I knew that if I if I lost Shalaxi and Be'lakor early on, and the Lord of Change just decided to not turn up that game, I'd be in trouble and I would struggle to kill the tanks. So, and thankfully, kind of what happened a bit. So I'm glad I didn't go with that. So we were playing Search and Destroy, which is the 18-inch bubble, which I was fine with. I don't mind that deployment zone against a shooty army. I knew that with that indirect, I could be a little bit more liberal with where I deployed leading up to the lines. Um, and we both went with tactical, which was cool. We were playing on Supply Drop and Chilling Rain. Supply Drop is a god awful mission. So it's the one where at the beginning of the game, just before the battle starts, you determine a alpha objective which disappears at the start of round 4, and then the omega objective which remains until the end of the game, which means the other objective in no man's land that wasn't marked disappears at the start of round 5, and then the scoring goes up depending. Now this was a yeah, I hate this mission. It's always very hard to score high unless you again table your opponent. For us, I have to remember which. So the objective in the bottom right hand corner, as you can see on the left hand side, that was the Omega objective. That's the one that lasted all game. The Alpha objective was the one in the middle. That's the one that disappeared first. So the one in the middle disappeared first. The one in the top left disappeared second. And then the one in the bottom right stayed for the whole game. So in this game, I reserved Fat Boy, the Great and Clean one, um, a unit of Nurglings, and how many of the horrors? Was it one or both? I think it was both units of horrors I reserved, I believe. So, being a bit reserving, but still at the same time, I kept Shalixi on. She deployed around Bellacor's bubble. Same with the chicken. He deployed behind Be'lakor. Um, and again, I knew that I wasn't going to go out too far. I didn't want to sacrifice any units too early on because I wanted to keep them for the late game. So we gave up primary score in turn 1, knowing or with the idea of I'm going to stop him getting primary turn 1 as well. And my whole game plan was to basically just take advantage of the fact that, he had to move around terrain. He's running the tanks quite hard to get around. And knowing that I need to keep protecting the 2 objectives on the flank and just block him into the middle, and knowing that he was going to struggle with primary. And that's what we did. I never let him really get to the middle. I threw the units of dogs out onto the middle for tempting target round 1, and they did end up dying, unfortunately. Shalaxi didn't have the greatest of games, so he did manage, because of where I deployed her behind the small rectangle in the center within Bellacor's bubble. He did move Alima Rust down to the bottom to get that throughout firing lane. and actually managed to take was it 8 wounds off her or 12 wounds off her? I think it was 8 wounds off her in one go, which was a bit like, oh, okay. So she rushed forward, killed that Lehman Russ. He had actually not Lehman Russ, sorry, Rogel Dawn. And then he had actually reserved and strategic reserved his big tank, the Bainsword, which in my turn two, he rapid ingressed it back in his deployment zone behind the big rectangle, but was enough to get angles on anything around there, which is where Shalaxi was. Unfortunately, I'd miscalculated how she was going to charge in and then be able to wheel herself back round to get onto the objective with the consolidation. Figured out I couldn't actually do it, which meant I couldn't get back into Bellicor's no shoot bubble, and she got popped by the Bane Sword, but she didn't blow up on the 3+. She still rolled the 1, which was quite cool. The fat boy sat in the middle. Um, I actually weakened a Lehman Russ for him to run in, kill it, and then come back into the middle, and again just hold it. My opponent did draw Assassination and Area Denial in turn 3, and he was the Assassinate, Deny, Area Denial double target, which I was like, I'm not too sad about. He wasn't able to get him in the round 3. He did get him in round 4, but again, at that point, it was like, okay, you've missed out on 2 full turns of scoring now, which I was fine with. Um, and you've had, at that point, 3 turns of no primary while I'm already 26 points up. So I managed to just keep myself on the bottom objective while keep screening him out with Nurglings. I kept dropping them 3 inches away to stop him getting through the gaps. The horrors, the same thing. They held the objectives. He killed them. They split. They kept holding objectives, kept screening them out or move blocking him, which was quite nice. Which is something the horrors are very good at doing. They're very good at if your opponent underestimates them, or even if they just roll well, they can just keep denying even if your opponent like commits to trying to take the objective. So they did well for me on the left, the upper left, by holding an objective off a sentinel while also taking I think it was a Lehman Russ that was shooting at them, and again just holding that far left objective. Same with the center, and then they came down into the bottom right and done the same down there as well. I used Plague Bearers to charge in and block out his big the Cadian squad with the command squad and Solar in it. So by doing that, I was able to just keep myself on it with the horrors, and he couldn't kill the horrors with the Bane Sword because not enough shots for up in buns and splitting because he wasn't going to wipe them out in one go meant they were just going to not die and keep that objective hold for me, which was quite nice. Be'lakor was a bit lackluster in this game, didn't really do much. And once he got round, he got battered off the board quite fast. So a bit of a shame, but the chicken danced around. His shooting was okay. Again, he wasn't really able to pick up much of the tanks because just wasn't really rolling any D3 sustained. But the fat boy was MVP alongside the horrors. So overall, pretty good. Secondary scoring again, not fantastic. Primary though in this mission, I was quite happy with because normally I score quite bad in this, so I was quite happy to get 41 there. And restricting Alex's primary down while his secondaries didn't really do too well, but at the same time, I think I played it right that the positions I was in made it quite hard for him to score those secondaries. So overall, pretty good win. Going into round 3, we had George Williamson on his Grey Knights. Now, I love a Demon Grey Knight matchup. Um, and George had only been playing competitive events now for about a year. So it's still quite new. And he told me that I was the first Demon player he's ever played competitively, or ever, I think it might have been. Which seems to be a common thing, especially for 10th edition. I seem to be, a lot of people's Demon first, which is quite cool. So we had a really cool Grey Knight list. He had 2 Librarians, one with First of the Fray, 2 Tech Marines, a Grandmaster with Sigil of Excellence, 2 5-man strike squads, 10-man Paladin squad, which is a bit like, oh, I don't like that squad. I hear people saying they're not very good. I don't like them. They're plain but 3 Dread Knights, which was cool and interesting, and I guess Dread Knights are a bit everywhere at the moment before Grey Knights, so cool. The Calidus Assassin, which we absolutely hate, and like I said, George, very new to demons, not really knowing what we could do, so when explaining everything to him, I told him about the 2 battle tactic strats that we have. One being demonic invulnerability for reroll in buns of 1. And at first he was like, oh, that's quite good. I might actually see if I might vec that. And I was like, no. The other one is the uppy downy. Realm of Chaos lets me go up and down. And he was like, oh no, I'm definitely going to do that one. I was like, yeah, exactly. So I think he was a bit surprised I'd revealed, like told him that, my best strategy and my best stratagem and one of the best things we have as a faction, that's the thing you're going to want to to vet. He was a bit like, "Oh, I'm surprised you told me that was up." It's the right thing to do, right? So he also had Draxus, who I normally can't stand, but she didn't really do much this game. And she sat inside the Inquisitorial Henchman, which sat at the back of the board. The Grandmaster went in with the Paladins, the Tech Marines and the Librarians all sat on their own, which was fine. So we were on Cru of War Battle, which was the long up corner down to the center, which is my favorite type of deployment. We were on Purge of Foe, which I was a bit like, oh, I hate Purge. Not a fan of it, but this list doesn't give us bad as Purge as some of my past lists, so not too bad. And Sweep and Clear, which was sticky objectives, which I don't really think came into it much in this game because we either took the objectives off each other or we sat on them, so didn't really matter that much. But I went first, which on Purge, your immediate reaction is, oh no. But I guess I kind of got away with it early game and then just managed to stay on top of it for the rest and never gave away kill more, which I was a bit like, okay, good. So what I did was I had my Nurglings, one unit that went into reserve, the other two, one sat in the upper left corner like they normally do for it in case I draw investigate signals. The other unit sat in front of the medium L that sits in the middle of my front deployment, trailing back so they could sit within Bellacor's shadow bubble. Shalaxi sat in that gap between the mid L and the big square, with Be'lakor behind the mid L, giving out that aura. Some dogs in front of him with the horrors just around there to screen, along with the chicken. And then the fat boy went into reserve, which was quite, because it was just not the best deployment for him, and I thought I'd get more use out of him up in the air. And then the horror play baron sat on the back foot objective, obviously. Again, we both went with tactical, which was cool. I went first, didn't really do a lot. Extend, I threw a unit of dogs up into the upper left objective, which sat there for the rest of the game. And behind enemy lines, I just lobbed because, again, going first, I wasn't going to get it, and I didn't want to keep hold of it because he could just keep screening me, which he did. Knowing I could go up and down, he screened me quite well, but he was screening me with very important units like the Tech Marines, which didn't really have to do a lot around the Dreadnoughts because the Dreadnoughts kept going up and down, but the Dreadnoughts also were screening, which if they kept them in the backfield, then I was fine because it wasn't coming near me. Though saying that, his turn one, he got very aggressive, so he thought, okay, I'm going to try and get those 8 points for the kill more. So he upped and downed with the Paladin squad and the two of the Dreadknights. And what he did was he dropped two of them down into the bottom right objective, one in front of the medium L and one on the side, so they could get line of sight down on Shalaxi. Actually, no, I tell a lie. So one did drop in front of the L. He had originally put one there and then actually put it on the other side, so in the gap between the rectangle and the L, because he knew he was struggling to get line of sight. Sorry, and the 18-inch, no shoot from Be'lakor. And then the Paladins dropped in the gap in the upper left between the so not quite the upper left, but where the middle objective is and the upper left objective are, in between there, more closer to my deployment zone. And he kind of messed up here. So he shot at the Nurglings, but only shot about 4 of the guys or 5 of the Paladins into them, and didn't kill them, which I was like, okay, good, because that's where you're going to get killed more. But he was more interested to try and do damage to Shalaxi with the Dread Knights and the Paladins in shooting. And I took like 5 or 6 wounds off her, which I was like, fine. So in my turn, I picked up the chicken, brought him down to the bottom right in my deployment zone to shoot at one of the Dread Knights. Shalaxi didn't move because I didn't want to give him Mr. Deimos to get the Paladins out of there. Be'lakor went up and dropped back down in my deployment zone just so I didn't have to worry about moving and all that stuff and potentially giving him Mr. Deimos opportunity. And then that meant I could charge Shalaxi and Be'lakor into the Paladin squad quite nicely with a 6-inch charge and a 7-inch charge. And then I did actually make a mistake here. So I did originally drop the Fat Boy onto the middle objective 3 away, but decided to instead bring it back and drop him down in my deployment zone so I could make a 6-inch charge on a Dread Knight should it survive from the Laws of Chain shooting, which it did. So he charged it and ended up killing it after Chilaxi and the chicken and him himself had damaged it. But by doing this, I didn't put anything onto the objective, which meant he then smartly rapid ingressed on it, which then got him hold more for the following turn, which was quite smart. So I was like, damn, I knew why I was getting on that objective, and then it just completely left my mind. So quite clever from George. But I did manage to kill the Dread Knight that turn. That was in front of the medium L. And then Bellicor and Shalaxi both got into the Terminator squad. Bellicor ended up picking up 5 of the Paladins, which I was a bit like, wow, because he just didn't make any 4-up saves. And then Shalaxi picked up another 3 of them with her claws. Sorry, Bellicor picked up 4 of them. She picked up 3 of them, leaving 3 left. And then with Shalaxi's big stick, she went into the character who took 1 wound. Oh, sorry, 1 failed save, which I think I done 5 wounds, which I re-rolled into a 3. And then he ended up tanking all rest of the other 5 on his 4-ups, which I guess he was owed since his paladins kind of just fell apart whenever I touched them. So, but being able to hit the paladin bomb that hard and almost neutralize it that early was quite nice. Um, and then from there, it wasn't too hard of a game. I kind of knew where we were going. I was able to stay on top of the primary, getting kill more every turn, and hold more for the last 2 turns, while restricting George down quite a bit. And actually, for 2 straight turns, he wasn't able to kill anything, because he just tried to get rid of Shalaxi and Bellicor and just wasn't able to. The Fat Boy, he just knew he wasn't going to be able to, and the Fat Boy kind of stuck around that bottom right objective, just trying to keep it contested as much as he could for later on in the game. The Chicken, again, was doing all right, getting some good shots off, clearing little Marines or the strike squads, and also damaging the Dread Knights. And then the unit of horrors sat in the middle of the objective, grabbing me. What did they get me? Tempting target and cleanse at the end of the game, but there was a point where he had kind of focused on it because he had to get it for, I think it was it tempting target? Overwhelm with force. Sorry, he needed overwhelm with force. He wasn't going to get up to the dogs in the other corner, and he couldn't put the ground anyone, so he decided to go for the horrors. So he had two Dread Knight shooting plus 1 Dread Knight combat and the Calidus combat, and the horrors just didn't die. I did proc demonic invulnerability for the shooting phase, and I think 4 or 5 of them died, but like 3 or 4 of them split. And then in the combat, he only killed a couple of them, meaning they were able to contest the objective still or keep it from me, giving me hold more, which was quite nice. So yeah, poor George didn't have the greatest game. I think he just committed too early on. Um, and just allow me to neutralize the Paladin bomb early, as well as get rid of a Dread Knight, be able to then move forward and clear the middle. I didn't really have to go near his backfield. He wasn't able to get near mine, so I was able to just dominate the middle, keep control of mine, and let him have his. And then because he kept screening out because he was afraid of me dropping down with the Bellicor Shilixi trick, he just, yeah, he just feared that too much and just wasn't able to fully commit, and I was just able to stay on top of the game. So overall, great game. George was a great opponent, and yeah, so we ended day 1 3-0, which was awesome. But we've done that quite a lot at Super Majors, and then had what I like to call the day 2 capitulation, where I kind of just brain fart it and end up either losing both games or drawing and losing. So I decided just to go back to my hotel and just not think about it. Just go, eat dinner, go bed. Woke up the next morning, again, didn't even think about it until about half hour before leaving, and then just looked at my phone to see who I was playing and went from there. So we ended up going into Robert Jones and his Death Guard. So Robert Jones, I didn't even realize until speaking to one of my 6 plus teammates, Tom, who also writes for Goonhammer, and I found out that Robert Jones is actually the American Goonhammer writer, so that was quite cool. He showed me quite a bit with the battle app, um, considering it's their app, and he showed me about something you can do on it, linking to your opponent's app, so that was quite cool. But he was running Death Guard. He had a Putrefier, a Blightspawn, Lord of Virulence, Mortarion, Tallyman, Typhus, 2 Plague Marines, which both sat in the Rhinos. One unit had the Putrefier and the Tallyman, while the other unit had the Blightspawn. 2 units of 3 Death Shroud, which one had the Lord of Virulence in, one had Typhus in. 3 PBCs, which again, yeah, I mean, you expect it. And then he stole 2 units of 3 Nurglings from us, which was a bit like, oh. But overall, pretty cool list. Very nicely painted army. And honestly, I'm not, I don't, I'm pretty sure in all my games of competitive 40k, like way over 200 games at this point, I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've played an American person. I say it like they're like a like weird different people, you know. But I can't ever remember. So I was a bit, oh, this will be interesting, and interesting it definitely was. So we played on Cru of War Battle again, which I'm fine with. Scorched Earths with Hidden Supplies. So we had 4 objects in the middle, which is good for my shadows. And then Scorched Earth, meaning you can burn objectives. Spoiler alert, I forgot about it all game and didn't burn once. Rob, I think, burned once or twice, but I was able to stop it. So no one actually did burn objectives. So again, the way we played this, Shalaxi went up in the air in this game. I think I had both units of horrors in the air. And a unit of Nurglings, and then we started with the dogs and the plague bearers, Be'lakor, Fat Boy, Lord of Change. I again played passive at the beginning. The Fat Boy was in the gap in the upper left corner, moved up toward the middle, but didn't get enough to get on the objective, and I decided to just leave him there for now, and he'll move up next turn. And I kept myself safe as much as I could, stringing everything back to Be'lakor so the PVCs couldn't just pick off for free. We had a poor first turn with attempt and target, which was, you know, selected to be the bottom right hand corner by Rob, which makes all the sense. Wasn't able to get to it. Assassination, which was, I was a bit like, okay, but I'll keep that because he had a lot of characters, and I knew that unless he kept back, I was going to be able to get to at least one of them. So I kept hold of that. And so he had actually moved the Rhino up to the left-hand corner behind the L, spat out his 10 Plague Marines with the Putrefier and the Tallyman, and then ended up grenading into the Fat Boy as well as shooting him and clearing the unit of dogs that had also pulled up with him. So he took quite a few wounds. I think he knocked the Fat Boy down to about 13 wounds in that one go. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I couldn't make a save or even feel no pain to save my life early game. Luckily enough, throughout the game, Rob couldn't really roll many shots on all of his random shotguns. Neither could he really hit that well either. So he wasn't able to hit or roll that many shots well all game while I couldn't save. So it was a really weird dynamic to the game because of that. But I was able to drop Shalaxi down in turn 2 because I went first. And both her and Fat Boy went in. Shalaxi ended up getting me assassinated twice over, as well as the Fat Boy killing most of the Plague Marines. Um, and to be honest, I kind of focused on that top left-hand corner objective. So I didn't really stretch out into the middle for a bit, where he was kind of waiting with the Rhino down the bottom side. Mortarion kind of moved up to the left hand, the objective in the middle to the right. But I just kept denying, dropping horrors to string across both middle objectives, though I wasn't actually denying him the points because it was hold 1, hold 2. Um, I was able to just be annoying, kind of screen him out from being able to move Mortarion through that gap or PBC through up forward. And I'm trying to think. My mind's going to be blank of how this game actually went overall. I think it was quite. I remember Shalaxi, not Shalaxi, um, Mortarion, sorry. So he ended up drawing Assassinate and Bring It Down, and he had targeted. I want to say it was Shalaxi he targeted and didn't do a lot of wounds to. And then in the following turn, he moved up with Mortarion. The chicken had moved into the gap between the mid-L and the big square in my deployment zone. Excuse me, shot down into the 10 Plague Marines that were on the right, the bottom right objective, which had killed some flesh hounds. I'd moved that to keep them screened, and I ended up killing most of them with the chicken, which was quite nice. Mortarion then moved in with the combination of some PBC shooting as well as grenades and stuff to kill the chicken to get him the 10 or to get him 9 points on Bring It Down and Assassinate, or 10 points. I think on cards it would have given him 10 points because I'm pretty sure Bring It Down on the Lord of Change with the +1 for being tactical was 5 points. So yeah, 10 points. And the chicken managed to survive on 3 wounds because he just tanked all his combat saves. So I was like, yes, get in, chicken boy. And then he proceeded to run away because he wanted nothing to do with Mortarion. Though that did mean he sat on my backfield objective, getting or preventing me from having defend stronghold, as well as allowing him to cleanse on my backfield, and also just being able to keep holding the objective, because at that point I had taken all 4 objectives. Shalaxi had come down and dealt with the Rhino, as well as the remaining Plague Marines and the Blightspawn that sat down in the bottom right. Be'lakor kind of moved his way forward, dealing with the PBCs. Um, I think Be'lakor ended up killing 2 PBCs overall. Fat Boy kept himself up in the top left-hand corner because he didn't need to move, and Rob didn't have the resources to go and get it. And I had actually brought down a unit of Plague Bearers down in the bottom right to try and make an 8-inch charge into the Rhino to try and knock 5 points off his primary. Unfortunately, not having the CPD reroll, did fail it. They then jumped up for the next turn, jumped back down into the upper right in his deployment zone to charge the Nurglings on his objective, and did take it. And then I was like there for the rest of the game, hoping I would draw capture, but I didn't, unfortunately. But we did get to the end of the game and managed to pull the win out, 77-68. Rob's secondary scoring wasn't great. He didn't draw right when he needed to, but at the same time, again, I managed to restrict it as much as I could to make it as hard as I could for him. Primary wise, I couldn't really stop him apart from burning objectives. And he had stopped me really by, stopping me from scoring more than 35 points. But secondary wise, I was able to score fairly decent, but again, not as well as I wanted to. So we were having a bit of an issue with that. And after that game, going 4-0, I was super chuffed and finally happy I'd broken that 3-0, 0-2 duct. But I was still a bit worried about how my secondary scoring was going. So we managed to go 4-0. I knew it was going to be a hard game going to 5-0, but I was like, I'm ready for it. I can deal with this. Just give me a decent enough draw. And then we ended up playing into Nassim Fouchain, who is one of the best players in the entire world. And I was a bit like, oh no. And a few people that I knew there were like, have you seen your next round? I was like, yes. And as I was looking up tools where our tables were, I could see Nassim like trying to get my attention, like, come on, let's play. So I was like, great, okay, fine. So I knew we were going to have a good game. Nassim's an awesome guy, and we have really good banter. And we had really good chemistry during the game, just basically abusing each other verbally. Um, but he's running his guard list, which is a super interesting list. He had Solar, a platoon command squad, 2 tank commanders with demolishers, Ursula Creed, who sat on her own, really just to give him like extra AP on his units. But in this game, he fully knew that it meant nothing in this game, and she was going to hide at the back to not hopefully give out assassinate. 2 units of 10 Catajan jungle fighters, a basilisk, 3 units of 6 Bulgrins, which I've learned are absolute bastards to deal with. They are not nice. They are really tough. Though I did manage to kill a few of them, but yeah, just horrible. 2 units of 10 Kazakins, 2 Manticores, and a Scout Sentinel. So a lot of pre-game scouting, and to be honest, I kind of messed this up. We both knew that I needed to go first. Let's look at the missions that we had. Search and Destroy, which I thought was quite good for him, and not bad for me, but pretty decent for him. Take and Hold, which is 5, 10, and 15 primary, which, okay, fine. And then Hidden Supplies, so 4 objectives again. But he had a lot of scout. We both rolled for the who goes first, and he went first. And I looked at him, and he had a big grin on his face. He looked at me, and he knew I wasn't too happy. And we both said to each other, "Yeah, that's not good." But unfortunately, in hindsight, played it really wrong. What I should have done was I should have taken all 3 of my Nurglings units and just lined them 9 inches away from his deployment, so he just couldn't scout out. Instead, I was so worried about having the scoring because I've got into my own head that my scoring for secondaries had not been good all weekend. Nurglings being one of the best scoring units we have. I wanted to keep them safe. And because of that, I didn't really reveal any of them to him, and I kept one in reserves. But hindsight being 2020, what I should have done was line them up, stopped him from coming out, and at least would have had a chance. Unfortunately, because I didn't do that and he went first, he scouted forward. He got +3 movement on a bunch of his units, and he was on all 4 objectives. 2 of them had Bulgrins on it. 1 unit had, oh no, sorry, the upper left, the right and middle, and then the bottom right all had Bulgrins on it, which I was like, fantastic, because he advanced pretty much everything forward. He then blocked me in with Kazakins into my deployment zone on the right hand side. And because of where Shalaxi was, he was able to get his tank commanders around and just get beads of line of sight on them, which he wouldn't have been able to do if I had Nurglings where they should have been. And he ended up taking, I think, 8 or 9 wounds off her straight away. No, it was more than that. It was 14 wounds. She was down to 6 wounds on turn one because I couldn't deploy her too far back. Should have probably reserved her, didn't. And yeah, and because of that, I just looked and I was like, I know I can't win this game now, but I've got to fight out as much as I can. So we ended up drawing Capture Enemy Outpost, which we were both like, oh, for fuck's sake. I was like, great. If there was any part of me or anything in this game that was going to be like, you ain't going to win this game, my cards were basically like, yeah, give up now. And attempting target, which he then made the middle right hand side, which was like, yeah, that made all the sense because he had a tank commander. And I think he had, did he have Borgrins on it? I think he had 3 Borgrins on it and a tank commander. Then he had a unit of Kazakhans in front of it, and then another unit of Kazakhans on the left hand side. So what I did was I upped and down my unit of pink horrors, dropped them down where the middle railway is in the center on the bottom side in my deployment zone. Ended up killing all but 2 of the Kazakhans with some shooting, which was good. That's all I wanted to do. Charged the horrors in. Ended up running a 7, which we, after measurement, was like, okay, it's not really enough to get enough horrors onto that objective to get a tempting target. So re-rolled it into a double 6 with the +1 for the 13. No, sorry, it was a 6 and a 5, with the +1 making it a 12. Which we were both like, oh, great. So I went from rolling not quite enough to maybe a bit too much, but managed to finesse it. Got, I think, 6 horrors into the 2 Kazakhans and managed to kill them to the wound, causing 2 wounds, and he failed both his 4+ saves, which meant my horrors then had enough to be able to pile in, consolidate onto that objective, getting me attempted target, which he was a bit like, oh, yeah, fair enough, like, you earned that. I was like, yes, I did. And again, pink horrors just doing what pink horrors do. And then they actually managed to keep hold of that objective. Not, they didn't actually, they contested it, they didn't hold it. But he really wanted to kill them, underestimated them, and then kind of looked at me after his turn, and after shooting them with a basilisk, a manticore, and some dudes, and then charging them with Borgrins, and they still survived. He was like, okay, I didn't think they were that good, and yeah, they're really good. And I was like, yep, they are very good. So I took a bit of a moral victory on that one, being able to get my attempted target and then making Nas realize that no, pink horrors are better than he thought they were. But Nas played it perfect. I messed up at the beginning, and though I'm not saying that means I can win the game, but I set a rod from my own back by just not trying to stop him playing the game he wanted to, and he was just able to do what he held all 4 objectives for the rest of the game in the middle, and there was nothing I could do. I kept dropping down, stealing and cleansing and stuff like that, killing some stuff, but yeah. And then Shalaxi, though she did take a lot in the following turns after going down to 6 wins, she healed back up to 9, and then started the tank shots, which was good. She did go down, so did Be'lakor. Fat Boy went down right at the end. The chicken went down after the other 2 went down in the following turn. And so it was more so when he was on all 4 objectives, I knew that, yeah, I can't win this game. But we had a super fun game. Nasser's an awesome guy. We had a great banter, shouting at each other and abusing each other verbally, which is awesome. So overall, um, I'd already got 4-0, so I was happy. The 5-0 I was wanting to get. Seeing who I had, I was like, okay, probably not, but we're going to try. And then going second, not deploying the way I should have deployed. And it was just, yeah. But overall, getting to the end of the event, we ended up finishing 43rd. Unfortunately, bottom of the 4-1 bracket because my scoring just was not that good all weekend. But I'm still super chuffed, still super happy. The list is great. And it took a player like Nassim to beat it, which I guess is a good sign. I'm not too sad about that. So overall, good event. The UKTC events are always good. Getting to catch up with people, getting people coming up saying hi, people who follow the blog or the Facebook, and that is awesome. And I encourage you, if you see me at events and you know who I am, please come and introduce yourself. I'm always up for meeting new people, talking to new people, and talking about demons. That's what I love. But yeah, we had 5 great games, all good opponents, fun as always, and a pretty decent result, which will contribute to my UKTC ranking, which is what we care about, as well as the ITC ranking as well, because we're going for number 1 in the UKTC this season for demons, and we're going to try and fight for that number 1 spot in the ITC. But even top 3, it's better than nothing. So, but yeah, overall good weekend. The list did what it needed to do, and we had 5 great games. So yeah, so thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching and listening to me ramble on as I got on the weekend. Please check out the Facebook and the Instagram, True Daemon Lord, keeping up with all our video uploads, competitive events, hobby progress, and all that kind of stuff. Please check out Creaturecaster, awesome third-party demon models, greater demons, heralds, as well as alternative battle line units and stuff like that. Great quality resin sculpts. And please check out the guys over at 6 Plus Plus, both the Facebook and the YouTube. They have live shows during the week. They post various different videos about different things, whether it be faction specific or how to play the game, or even just fun videos. So yes, that'll do from me. Thank you for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. It is very much appreciated, and it helps me be able to continue doing this and providing these videos to help everyone out that I can when it comes to demons. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you later.